Ethical relativism. Ethical relativism says you cannot morally judge other cultures by any standard held by your culture. Nazi Germany, Holocaust, kills millions of people, Jews, Gypsies, Jehovah's Witnesses, anybody they don't like. Communists, sure, rack them up, shoot them down, murder them, kill them in horrible, horrible, horrible ways. Perfectly fine, according to moral relativism. It's their culture to kill large numbers of people in horrible, horrible ways. Armenian genocide, killing fields of Cambodia. We shouldn't judge them by American standards of compassion and decency. Oh no, it's perfectly fine for them to be killed. Yeah, that just doesn't sound morally appealing, does it? What's the argument for this? The argument for this is simply, well, in different cultures, people disagree about what's right or wrong. Therefore, there is no real right or wrong, and what's right or wrong depends on the culture. Well, that's perfectly fine. That works for mathematics, doesn't it? You have a bunch of different cultures, each of which has a different idea of the value of pi, for instance. We think it's 3.142 and then a bunch of other numbers. Other people think it's 3.141, so on. Another culture thinks that it's exactly 3. It's just going to be different in every culture, because if cultures disagree about something, then that thing cannot have a real value. Yeah, that's not a good argument, right? If we have other reasons to think that morality exists, like real human needs that we can observe, then we can reject ethical relativism, because that argument just doesn't work. And there's other problems with ethical relativism. It says you can't judge other cultures, right? You can't criticize, you can't interfere. But what if it's my culture to interfere? I mean, I'm English, really. I grew up in England, and I don't know about, about English, but our culture is pretty much interfere with everybody. We invaded 3/5 of the world's countries. There's very few countries out there that have not been invaded by Great Britain, but England at some point or another. That's what we do. So you can't judge us for invading, which means that Pearl Harbor, well, at the time, it was the Japanese culture to attack people who they thought were going to interfere with them. Can't blame Japan for attacking us, because that was their culture. They thought it was perfectly fine. 9/11, well, based on cultural values of killing people who don't live the way you live, or revenge, or whatever it is it was. But it's, if it's their culture to make this kind of attack, then we can't judge. Yeah, that just doesn't make any sense to me either. So there's a couple of other issues. What is my culture, right? I said I'm English. I grew up in England. I have certain English cultural values. We drink tea. Now I'm in America. I'm supposed to drink coffee. We have virtual values about what it is to be a man, what it is to be a woman. Am I English? Am I American? How do I do this? And it's the same for everybody else. Most of us belong to at least one other subculture. We're not general white bread American. We often mix cultures. I'm a reenactor. There's a certain culture that goes to there. Science fiction fandom. Again, I'm an academic. That's a subculture. Right? What happens when these cultural values throw? How do I determine which culture I am? That's not good. Last thing is, ever heard of the idea of moral progress? The idea of a society becoming morally better over time. That's absolutely impossible under moral relativism, because according to moral relativism, every culture is equally moral. In fact, every culture is perfectly moral, and every culture at any time is perfectly moral. Right? Remember when we had slaves back in the before the Civil War? Americans owned slaves. Imagine an antebellum Southerner coming forward in time and seeing our society and saying, well, this is terrible. You allow black people to hold professional positions. And in fact, you have women doctors. That's terrible. You should not allow women to work outside the home. That's evil. We go back there, we make similar judgments about them. Right? So moral relativism says that culture is no worse than our culture. And in fact, moral progress is impossible. There's only change. It's never progress. It's never better. So in my view, moral relativism, the idea that what is moral for you depends on what your culture is a really, 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 really stupid idea. Very stupid.